Let's start with a compassion meditation. Setting the body into a state of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance. Relaxing more deeply with each out-breath. And with each out-breath, letting go of any thoughts that may have arisen. Happily releasing them. And allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. Simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. So again, we can begin by first cultivating compassion for ourselves and then expanding out to others. So let's begin by imagining the inner purity of our mind in the form of a small, white, radiant sphere of light in the centre of our chest at the level of the heart. And arouse the thought, how wonderful it would be if I were free of suffering and its causes. May I be free of all suffering and its causes. May I be free of all mental afflictions. And imagining your mental afflictions and suffering in the form of black smoke filling the body. And with each in-breath, imagine drawing that black smoke into the sphere of light at your heart, completely dissolving it there. So with each in-breath, breathe in with compassion, dissolving and extinguishing your mental afflictions and suffering at your heart. Dissolving it into that inner purity of mind, that inner wisdom. Imagine the cloud is now completely extinguished, and now you're completely free of all mental afflictions and suffering. And simply rest in that freedom, rest in that purity. And just as you wish to be free of suffering, so does everyone else. So allow your field of compassion to expand out to the person seated next to you. They're just like yourself in wanting to be free of suffering. So arouse the thought, how wonderful it would be if I were free of suffering and its causes. May you be free of all suffering and its causes. May you be free of all mental afflictions. And imagining their mental afflictions and suffering in the form of black smoke filling their body. And with each in-breath, imagine drawing that black smoke out of their body and bringing it into the sphere of light at your heart, completely dissolving it there. So with each in-breath, breathe in with compassion, dissolving and extinguishing your mental afflictions and suffering at your heart. And then imagine the black cloud is completely extinguished. And now they're completely free of all mental afflictions and suffering. And take delight in this. And then allow your field of compassion to expand out further. And allow your mind to move around. And whoever comes to mind, whether it's a friend, a stranger, or even a difficult person, attend to them. May you be free of all suffering and its causes. And breathing in with compassion, dissolving and extinguishing their suffering at your heart. Allow the mind to continue to move around. Whoever comes to mind, whether it's an individual or even a group of people, attend to them, breathing in with compassion. release all appearances and allow the mind to come to rest, resting in that inner purity. Which is in the nature of compassion. So let's look at this chart again, the Shamatha chart. So remember, this is the sort of the standard model that's often used to describe the stages of progress in this practice. And so to briefly review what we covered yesterday, before we continue on. So remember, the elephant is the mind. The fact that it is black is symbolising this dullness or laxity. The monkey is symbolising discursive thought in general. The fact that it's black is symbolising this excitement. And so what we saw here at the first stage, the elephant and monkey are running wildly ahead of the meditator. So at the first stage of practice here, we simply notice that our mind is completely out of control. That we can hardly put our attention on the object for more than a few seconds, and then we tend to get distracted for long periods of time. But if we continue to practice, we can get round to the second stage here, where the elephant and monkey are not running so fast anymore, a little bit of white on the tops of their head, which now means at the second stage we notice that our mind is settling down a little bit. We can focus on the object a bit longer, maybe even up to a minute or two, but we still tend to be distracted for long periods of time, more off the object than on the object. And then if we keep practicing, we'll go around to stage 3 and 4, so remember that road there is the road of mindfulness. So now by stage 3 and 4 our mindfulness is getting a lot better, so much so that at stage 3 we can now hold the object longer, maybe 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And now if we get distracted, we quickly recognise that and quickly come back to the object. But of course here we saw the rabbit has come into the picture, symbolising this subtle dullness, subtle laxity. So from stage 3 on we have to be watchful for this. If we're not picking up that our mind is sinking a little bit, even though the object is there most of the time, we're quite clear on the object, then if we don't notice that our mind is a little bit, the attention is a bit slack, sinking a little bit, then we won't progress. Then we get to stage 4. In stage 4 now, we can hold the object the entire session without ever completely losing it, but still our attention has a lot of work to continue to go further. So even at stage 4, our attention tends to be quite fragmented, meaning that even though we never completely lose the object, we can have these other thoughts and distractions sort of there in the mind at the same time as the object. And so we've fragmented our attention backwards and forwards. And so that's where we left off last night at stage 4. So let's continue on. So then we go around the corner to stage 5 and 6. And so this road here is called the road of introspection. So now our introspection, our quality control is getting a lot better. So we see the hook of introspection is quite prominent here at stage 5 and 6. So even though we never completely lose the object after stage 4, then of course there's still a lot of work to do on the quality of our attention. And here over the middling stages, often the analogy we see used is the analogy of a guitar string. That if a guitar string is too tight or too loose, it doesn't play well. Likewise, if our mind is too tight or too loose, it doesn't focus well. So we're constantly fine-tuning our focus. If we're too tight, we start to get agitated. Too loose, we start to fall into dullness. And so that's what we're doing a lot over these middling stages, is fine-tuning that focus. So let's have a look at a few comments from Attention Revolution on these middling stages here. So stage 5 is on page 78. The primary challenge here is to overcome laxity without undermining stability. The way to counteract laxity is to arouse the attention, to take a greater interest in the object of meditation. Tibetan contemplatives liken this to stringing a lute. If the strings are too taut, i.e. too tight, they may easily break under the strain. But if they're too slack, the instrument is unplayable. Likewise, the task at this point is to determine the proper pitch of attention. If you arouse the mind too much in your efforts to remedy laxity, it will easily fall into excitation. But if you relax too much, it will likely succumb to laxity. It's a delicate balancing act, and the only way you can meet this challenge is through your own experience, determining for yourself the suitable degree of effort to tune your attention. Buddhist contemplatives have grappled with this dilemma for millennia, and they report it takes great skill to solve it. Having achieved the 3rd and 4th stages with the power of mindfulness, the 5th stage is achieved by the power of introspection. The power of introspection is the faculty of monitoring the quality of your attention, and this skill must now be honed so that you can detect more and more subtle degrees of laxity and excitation. And then at stage 6 now, what we see here now is that the rabbit has gone, and also there's much less black on the elephant and much less black on the monkey. So now we're really fine-tuning that attention, getting rid of more and more subtle degrees of agitation and dullness. So let's have a look again in Attention Revolution on page 99. And remember, Alan Wallace, his one recommendation was to use mindfulness of breathing on the first 4 stages, and then from stage 5 up to 8 to do the practice we did today. So when he's describing these 9 stages here, he's using those as the object. So he says here, so remember, in this practice we did today, these are the stages of progress. And so here he says, in stage 6, involuntary thoughts pass through your consciousness like a river slowly flowing through a valley. So already by stage 6, we're down to this sort of experience here. As the mind becomes more at ease, thoughts flicker like butterflies through the space of awareness, and you're able to passively witness the entire sequence of thoughts arising, playing themselves out, then vanishing. They seem to be less weighty in that they're less able to pull your attention after them. Like Einstein's theory that physical space is warped by the bodies of matter within it, it sometimes feels as if the space of awareness is warped by the contents of the mind. At times, when we become fixated on something, our minds seem to become very small. trivial issues loom up in our awareness as if they were very large and important. In reality, they haven't become large, our minds have become small. The experienced magnitude of the contents of the mind is relative to the spaciousness of the mind. So to keep the activities of the mind in perspective, let the space of awareness remain as expansive as possible. In the meantime, the less you grasp onto mental events, the less the space of the mind contracts around them and is warped by them. So that's what we introduced a little bit just before dinner, that focusing on the space of mind. And I think there was a couple of comments along this line that somehow when you rested in that, it was much more spacious and it was a little bit easier to observe what was going on in the mind. And so that's what we're actually going to be doing again the day after tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to do exactly what's being mentioned here, is to really connect with that open, spacious stillness of awareness. Because now, using that analogy here, our mind tends to be very tight and constricted. And because of that, when some little stimulus comes in the day, we sort of react very easily. A little bit like the analogy of we having some water in a cup. Our mind is like the water in a cup, very small and tight and constricted. And then if we just drop a little tiny pebble in there, the surface of the water gets completely unbalanced. Similarly, because our mind is like this, tight and constricted, it only needs some little stimulus to come our way and we react, and it becomes some huge issue in our life. Whereas if we can do a suggested here, and this is what we're going to be working on tomorrow, is really have that rest in that open, spacious state of mind. So that's what we're really going to be working on tomorrow. And then the day after, we're going to come back to this practice again. As said here, if we can keep that open, spacious awareness, and from that observe what's going on in the mind, then I think you'll find a very different experience. And that would be like, instead of the water in the cup, we now have the water in the lake, and we drop that same pebble in the water in the lake, there's hardly a ripple. So similarly, that's, I think, what you're going to find is by holding that open, spacious mind, then we'll be able to observe all of these things going on, and we won't have this reaction to them because we're tight. So again, it's not that small things become big, it's our mind has become small. That's why things seem so big. So anyway, that's what we're going to be working on tomorrow, and then the next day we're going to come back to this. So that's stage 6. So then if we go around the corner here to stage 7 and 8, this road is the road of enthusiasm. Now we're having a lot of enthusiasm in the practice, and that's what really moves us along these higher stages, having a lot of joy and enthusiasm in the practice. And so what we see at stage 7 here is now, of course, the rabbit has gone, the meditator saying goodbye to the monkey, and there's hardly any little black left on the back of the elephant here. So what that means is that